Hello and welcome back to Clarkenomics. In this video, we're going to talk about an important concept called price elasticity of demand. So let's get right into it. Price elasticity of demand is predicated on the idea that there's a relationship between price and quantity demanded. If you think back to one of the early videos that I did about demand, you know that the quantity demanded of a product is dependent upon the price of that product, right? We said the price is the independent variable, quantity demanded is the dependent variable, and that there was an inverse relationship between these two variables, meaning if price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. If price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. That's why demand curves have a downward slope. It's a negative inverse relationship, right? So we know that. But what price elasticity of demand tells us is more of a marginal answer. It is how much does quantity demanded change when the price of a good changes. So put simply, it's how sensitive are consumers to the price of a product? Do consumers really care about the price of the product, or do they not care so much? And their behavior in terms of how much they're buying is going to give us that answer. So we're going to just say if demand is more elastic, we're just going to use that terminology right out of the gate here. If there's a more elastic demand, this means that consumers are sensitive to the price of the product. In other words, changes in the price of the product cause big changes in quantity demanded. Consumers are really adjusting their behavior based on the price of the product. If demand is less elastic, then the opposite is true. Consumers are insensitive to the price of the product. In other words, the product can change price and it only causes small changes in quantity demanded, right? People don't care that much if the demand is not very elastic. They're going to buy more or less the same quantity of the thing despite the price changing. Whereas a good with an elastic demand, even if the price changes just like a little bit, can have some big effects on how much of it people buy. So let's look at an example to maybe clarify this point, right? We've got two goods here. We've got blue widgets and red widgets. Now in week one, these goods are basically identical, right? Each one costs $5 per widget. You can see that in the first row of each table. And at a price of $5, the quantity of blue widgets demanded is 20, and the quantity of red widgets demanded is also 20. Now let's imagine we move to week two. Week two, the price of blue widgets rises to $7.50 per widget. As a result, the quantity demanded drops from 20 all the way down to 5. But for red widgets, we see the same price increase. In week two, the price of red widgets also rose to $7.50, up from 5. However, the quantity demanded doesn't really change that much. It drops from 20 down to 15. So what we would say in this case is at these prices, with the data we're given here, the demand for blue widgets is elastic. Look how much consumers changed their buying behavior as a result of this price increase, right? This is a 50% rise in the price. But for the blue widgets, they saw a huge decrease, a 75% decrease in quantity demanded. On the red widgets, we'd call those demand inelastic because they saw that same 50% price increase, but they only had a reduction of 25% in quantity demanded. Consumers didn't really care that much about the price jump for red widgets, but they really cared about the price jump for blue widgets. And that's how elasticity works. Now, if you guys want to look at this in the most extreme cases possible, let's imagine a perfectly inelastic demand, like as inelastic as it could possibly be. That would be a perfectly vertical curve like the one you see on the screen here. Because take a look. Do consumers care about the price of the product? Not at all. In fact, when the price of the product was $2, quantity demanded was 5. When it was $4, quantity demanded is still 5. 6, 8, 10. No matter what the price is, the quantity demanded remains $5. Sorry, not $5, 5. So what we're trying to say is consumers are completely insensitive to the price of this product. They'll buy the same amount no matter what the price actually is. This is a perfectly inelastic demand. Now, in the real world, there's no such thing as a perfectly inelastic demand because even if people continue to want it at high prices, that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to afford it because everybody has a finite income, right? Nobody's demand curve is so perfectly vertical that it extends infinitely. Eventually, you're going to run out of money. but this is what a perfectly inelastic demand would look like. On the flip side, a perfectly elastic demand would look like this. No matter what at that one price, in this case 5, the quantity demanded is basically infinite, right? It extends outwards to the right infinitely. So don't get too hung up on that. But just know that these are the two extreme examples of what elasticity can look like, perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal. But in the real world, they don't look like this. In the real world, they might look like this, only these would be curved, not straight, but don't worry about it. A relatively inelastic demand generally has the appearance of being steeper. Now let's think about why. The price doesn't have to change that much, right? The price changes a little bit. Quantity demanded doesn't change barely at all. But even if the price changes a lot, like look at the graph on the left, the price goes from 1 up to 9. Quantity demanded only decreases from 5 to 3, right? So price can change rapidly or by a lot, and consumers don't really change their quantity demanded. That's what relatively inelastic demand looks like. So more steep is less elastic. On the graph on the right, a relatively elastic demand is very shallow. Let's look at the price change here. Let's imagine we started at $4 and the price rises to $6. That decreases quantity demanded from 9 all the way down to 2. So a tiny rise in price caused a huge change in quantity demanded. So as a general rule, the steeper the demand curve is, the less elastic the demand is. The shallower the demand curve is, the more elastic the demand. Now, in reality, even a curve that might look elastic or inelastic actually has segments that are elastic and segments that are inelastic. But as a general rule, the steeper it is, the less elastic it is. The shallower it is, the more elastic it is. So we'll keep practicing with that. But in the meantime, I hope that helps introduce you to the idea of elasticity of demand. Thanks for watching.